side, but on the functional and the product development on the business side. So I was there working for about 7 to 8 years before I decided to come home back to Malaysia for good. So that was back in 2005. So that was a long time ago. And my first business started in 2007 with the kindergarten. And in 2008, I co-founded another company that was a hijab company. So that was briefly how I get involved in the entrepreneurial journey.
Okay, wow, that's amazing. From a software developer, from the business angle, you jumped right into business. So that's the point that that's always intriguing to me. You know what? Did you have this entrepreneurial mindset at the beginning, or was it what woke you up? What made you want to do this? Was it a natural thing for you? You know, some people, they started selling it when they were 7, so it was a natural progression for them. But for me, I was a corporate guy. Entrepreneurship has never been in my family, my immediate family, and I'm trying to break out of that shell, and I'm still wrestling with it. You know, because you need to have a certain mindset to be an entrepreneur. So were you a natural entrepreneur, or did you develop it? What happened?
To be honest, none of my immediate family members were ever in business. In fact, I think I remember when I was small, my dad kind of attempted to do some small business from home, and that failed miserably. So I think my business journey was really out of necessity at the time, in terms of there were some problems that I couldn't find solutions for. So I want to be part of the solutions instead of, taking actions and doing it right away, instead of waiting for the problem to be solved by others. And case in point, when I co-founded the first hijab company, at the time in 2008, there was not a lot of choices for Muslimah in terms of what they can wear. It was just bawal, and that was it. This was despite the fact that so many Muslim women in Malaysia wearing hijab, but there was not a lot of hijab providers. So we sort of like just quickly took the problems by the hands and want to solve it, kind of attitude.
Did you have a model to follow, or did somebody inspire you about doing business, or was it something that you just said, hell, I'm just going to do this and see what happens?
That's an interesting question, because what I wanted to share a lot today is about thought process. And definitely, having been in business for over 10 years, right, close to 12 years now, my thought process today and my thought process back then is really, really different. It has matured, it has grown. Back then, I think somehow I feel I got lucky in some sense, but at the time, my intention was clear, but the thought process was probably not so much with clarity compared to now. So I think that will be the basis of a lot of things that I want to share. Hopefully, by those sharings, it will help a lot of other people not to make the kind of mistakes I did along the way.
Yeah, precisely. Okay, that's exactly the stuff that and I'm sure a lot of people want to hear, the thought process behind the business. But I'm still curious, what made you just, from being an employee, right? You came back to Malaysia, and what triggered you to do business? What happened? Go ahead.
So in the US, when people are hiring or companies hire, they look at a lot of things other than just your degree, right? So even though I had a biology degree, a science degree, and an economics major, I was double majoring. So that does not stop the company to hire me to be in the software development team. I think the mindset was vastly different in Malaysia. So when I came back, found myself having all these experience, and the company that I was working for, two of them were a majority of my time there was with the Fortune 500 companies. So these are really accomplished companies. So I would say that that experience should count. But the
Yeah.
truth was, when I came back, they would just solely focus on my degree. And when they look at my biology degree, like they couldn't make sense. Like, why were you in software? Like, why aren't you doing biology?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to do biology. That's the whole point. So I think I quickly decided that maybe working in Malaysia would have to be a different strategy. So being a business owner at the time was really a way, like an outlet for me to spend my, all my energy instead of working for people or companies who wouldn't appreciate for all the skills that I've built.
And of all the businesses, you decided to do the kindergarten business.
Right, that was out of necessity. I couldn't find any kindergarten that was good for my kids, so quickly jumped into Montessori, because when my kids were in the US, two of them were born there. So one was born in Boston, one was born in California. So I had the privilege of being part of the education system there for a few years. So I was kind of really spoiled. So when I came back, I was really not happy with whatever options or choices that I had here. So I had to, again, take matters into my hands and start my Montessori learning myself with few academies, and then open the kindergarten.
Okay,
And
so
safe to say that all five of my children were students there at one point.
So you had a problem and you couldn't find a solution. So you built that solution yourself. Amazing.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much, yes.
Right. So far that I've been hearing you, it's always around thinking, around the flow of thought. It's always around solution, right? And whatever that you have been doing so far, as per your explanation, is really around, okay, I'm having this situation. So how can I solve this? How can I do it? According to the level that you want to have, right? So, Omar?
Yeah, and I think that's great. It's also very reflective of the current situation right now, because a lot of people are looking at the current situation and they might be looking at a problem, right? So for someone like Suri, they change your mindset and say, how can I solve this problem? As opposed to complaining or whining about it. So that's amazing. Okay, so now from the kindergarten, do you still have that kindergarten, Suri?
It is still running today. Obviously, during this COVID time, we are doing it online, but it's still running. It's very small business.
All right, so perhaps you would like to learn more from Suri, Omar.
Yeah.
So let's also go straight on into, because Suri, one thing about Suri is that she's already prepared what to share with the audience.
Yeah.
And we are pretty much, like, it's sort of like, okay, this time is let's have Suri to go with the flow that you would like to share around, because you mentioned about, in fact, I had the communication with Suri earlier, via WhatsApp. And she mentioned around 5 mistakes of my entrepreneurship journey. And she also mentioned about how she built or rather started new ventures via OPM. At first, I didn't know what was that. So I Googled, and it's like so many of those abbreviations. I said, which one? Like, I've also, found abbreviation around operating models. I said, wow, this is like so complicated. So therefore I asked you. So it's basically OPM here means other people's money, and finding the right business model, and also the right partner and advisor. So there's so much, it's like pack of information for our viewers. And I don't know, how shall I hand over it to you, Suri, or how is it?
Wait, first I want to say, am I not supposed to do that? To choose
No,
my
it's
own
good.
topic?
No, it's
I
good.
thought, I thought that was
No,
because
this
I wasn't sure. There was so much probably ideas on
right,
content to
right.
share. So I thought I probably could narrow it down and find things that probably would help, most people, because these
Yeah.
are the areas I think until today I found that I'm either helping friends on
Yeah,
scrutinizing or brainstorming on their ideas, or I see things that I would be thinking to myself like, oh, I wish this person probably would have thought of this before telling this
yeah,
type of thing. Right. But I mean, having said that,
Yeah. That'll be
I
perfect.
did
That's perfect.
yeah.
the things that I wanted to share today came from a lot of years of learning, making mistakes. Kalau in Malay, it's like a lot of langgar dinding, and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like you would want to langgar dinding a lot of times. So hopefully this will be helpful to some people who see this in terms of avoid things that they can avoid.
Mhm.
Right. Well, because this session is really around giving value or adding value, there's no right or wrong. Good news is
Yeah.
that we can just share our personal experiences, and therefore we hope is others will gain something out of it. So like
Right.
yeah, me and Omar, we are thankful that you already have that flow that aligns to what we want to convey through this program. Yeah, thank you so much for that. All right. So,
Okay.
mm,
So should I just go?
yes,
Go
yes,
at it?
yeah.
All right. You can stop me at any time if you have any things that you want me to clarify, or
All
if
right.
you want to just comment on. But I guess you're right, Jack. This is my story, and as each of us, when we have our story, there's no right or wrong. I mean, there's only learning, right? Learning and continuous learning, and hopefully not making that same mistake again. So back to the keyword that I said in the beginning, the thought process. So when I started my business, first business in fashion, in modest fashion, it was the thought process at the time was a bit naive. It was very simplified. I was gung ho on try to solve a few problems, but the intention was very clear. Like um, we kind of the company knows what problem it wanted to solve, but in terms of the thought process, all the things that are involved in creating a business, like all the analysis, the numbers, I did not do any of this. Somehow, because of the market opportunity at the time, and um, the company, the brand really got lucky, and we managed to come up with a very good very good range of products. And because there's a huge market gap and void, we're able to fulfill it very fast. So it was a combination of all of those. I believe that helped propel that company, make it successful. But the problem is, and I didn't realize this at the time, right? Because once you kind of like experience all that like good news, you start thinking, oh, I must have been doing things right? Wrong. There's a lot of things that we're not doing right. But I didn't know that at the time. So it's only after I started my second fashion brand, so that transition, because if the thought process have been very organized and strategized right, chances are you'll be able to replicate things quite easily, right? The success, all of it. But in my case, for the second time, there were things that I was able to replicate. That there were things that I had missed, and that was a really costly mistake. So, for example, going from one business to another. So we have, for example, for myself, I had a lot of experience in the operational side. So the thought process was very much in the operational side. And if if I was thinking about strategy, it was like a lot of operational strategies instead of big picture strategies. So the keyword, the big picture there was missing. And even if there was a big picture, it was very segmented. I wasn't thinking in terms of numbers, in terms of data. So let me give you an example. So for the first hijab company, the company sort of grew very rapidly from 2,000 ringgit in sales, going into, it keeps adding digits, it kept adding digits until the digits I couldn't believe, because it was growing very fast. So I get a lot of a lot of like crash course in marketing, in operations, in a lot of those. So that kind of built the thought process going forward. So when I started my second brand, all of that were kind of like, all right, this is all like a repeat. So we can do the operation side. We know how to manufacture. So production side taken care of. We know how to do retail. We know how to organize staff. We know how to do marketing campaign. We know how to do advertisements. We know how to, all of that. That question was answered, but what's not answered was the big picture. What was my big picture in terms of business strategies for the second brand? And I didn't realize it then. I thought having a brand and wanting to grow it and wanting to make it, make some international presence, that was enough strategy. But obviously I know better now. That was not sufficient. I didn't think how everything was going to pan out, because I had came from a business that have grown big. Then I become a startup again, but my mindset was still like a big company, I was doing a lot of spending, I was not strategizing. So if I had a good big picture as my thought process, it's the fundamental of my thought process, I would have considered all of that. I would have done better. My biggest mistake in that second business was not in marketing, not in product. We had great product that until today people are still looking for. I mean, people will still come up to me and say, I really want to buy your skirt. And I was like, I don't sell it anymore. Saraya Zahra was the brand. So it was not a marketing mistake. We were pretty strong in the marketing. I had the chance to be in some international fashion show, like in Melbourne Fashion Week, and then we had something in Qatar, in Doha. So, but it was the bleeding on a lot of operational inefficiencies in the numbers. I was not taking care of my aging, my stock aging, my inventory aging, my financial forecasting was very weak. So that did not come naturally to me as an entrepreneur at the time. I was really just passing that task to someone else to handle, when it should be over, like something that as the leader, I need to be on top of that numbers. So the bleeding got it to a point where I had to really just ask myself, do I want to do this and re-strategize, or do I want to take a break, right? And I was already turning. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to cut you that part, because I have these questions around how did you get the realization? Did someone perhaps pointed it to you, or how was it? Or you bleed and then you realize that you are having this, this pain. So I'm just curious around how did you realize?
Okay, you learn very fast when it's your own money that you're bleeding. Right. So for Sarah Zahra, I sort of funded the entire business myself. It was it was a big amount, and yeah, so that lesson came really quickly when you realize that you know your hard-earned, you know, savings and income from previous work is dwindling very fast because you're just trying to keep injecting money to the business. So I had to just reflect and change course, um, and really analyze what's my thought process. Why am I not successful in terms of and I was successful in terms of building the brand name, awareness, product, but at the end of the day, cash is king. Why am I bleeding? We had good sales, but we also were spending so much. So I had to be on top of that. I start to learn. I start to get mentorship. Mind you, for the first few years of the business, I did not have a direct mentor. I did not have any direct business mentor. I hope that answers your question, Jack.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. Yeah, it's really
All right.
around. Yeah, I like it when you bleed, and then that's where you realize a lot of time, perhaps that can be much clearer. It will be much clearer, and how to say, it's when you have a mentor that can guide you, so that you don't have to go through all those pains. But in a way, it's a good news as well, because that's where the wisdom will surface, right, out of those experiences.
It was like it was a bleaching of the thought process, really cleansing, you know, like your ways of thinking needs to change. Your ways of thinking need to change, which should be supported by ways of your doing, you know. Who you are needs to change as a business person. If you're going to adopt to this kind of new thinking, new ways of thinking, right? So, I mean, coming from a creative mind, right? I mean, I love doing creative work. I think all the creative minds out there would agree with me that we are not fond of numbers. So it's very dangerous, I would say. That was my first lesson. It took not a day, not 1 week, not even months, okay, to fix that. That knowledge is something that you have to practice and practice, and I'm still learning and practicing. But as long as you get the fundamental rights in the numbers, I would never say again, check the account or check with the accountant, never again, because a lot of those fundamentals in the way of thinking for business must come from the understanding of those information, the numbers. You don't push it off to other people. You understand it yourself. You create those numbers yourself, and have all of these people around you help either help execute or help process the numbers. But that numbers must, like, you have to operate from a number-driven or data-driven mindset and thought process.
Oh.
So I want to talk about in the last half hour that we have here, the half of the program. I want to share about the thought process of evaluating new business based on my experience. So in my story, when I decided to take a break with Sarah Zaret, which that happened a few years back, I sort of took a year or two break. In general, I would say a break, but maybe from people's what you see, I wasn't taking a break because I was still doing something, but really asking myself a lot of questions that were quite difficult, that I couldn't answer myself for a while. You know, like, if I want to build the next business and have it be so meaningful, what will it be? And so in the meantime, as I'm discovering this, as I'm figuring this out, I was still doing something, but I wasn't sure if that was the right thing, you know, that I would want to grow. And after the 40-year-old mark, obviously you kind of just tell yourself that um, you have this kind of like window where you can work, and then you probably don't want to be working like this again when you're in your, let's say, certain age group. So I thought, okay, I really need to change my strategy here. My thought process on this really need to change, and it's really driven by the word big picture, right? I mean, I think a lot of us SMEs, we are very excited with ideas. Um, we sometimes get too confident that the ideas will work, but we always forget the big picture. The big picture, either we're too busy to draw the big picture, or we're scared to even start thinking of the big picture and just say, tu fikir nantilah, yeah, tu nanti fikirlah, kita tengok dulu. We'll just see how it goes. Either way, I guess, would work. But if you're, I mean, in my case, I know I don't have a lot of time. You know, I want to be able to do this, but faster. I don't want to spend another few years building things, testing it out. So when I start Hejira, when the idea comes back, so I ask myself, if I want to do a fashion business again or hijab business again, what needs to be drastically different from last time that will help me jumpstart a lot of things, right? I don't want to go through that process again. And bear in mind that the market is very different now compared to when it was 10, 12 years ago. It's very crowded now. There's a lot of competitors out there. So I've come up with this kind of thought process, right? I keep talking about the word thought process, but I come up with some formulas that I've used over again and again. And I'm lucky because my husband is also in the business, so I have a lot of chances to not only do this or practice this for my own business, but I get to practice a lot of this on his business as well. The kind of thought process, the kind of thinking, the kind of all the analysis that needs to be done, and seeing that and observing what he does also helped me a lot with my sharpening my saw, see. All right, so Jai or Shay, are we good so far? Should I
Yeah,
pause and
you can.
take questions?
Yeah, you can continue, Suri. Yeah, I have a lot of these nuggets of words, if I can call it that way. But the words that keep on looping in my head at the moment is like really around you being aware of your thought process, and perhaps along the way around how can I improve, and what are the key elements in operating a business that you need to be equipped with. And if you don't have it, and get someone to support you, or rather get yourself be expert, or rather be equipped with that, again, that skills and knowledge. And so far I've been hearing a lot of this, apart from thought process, is like you've been saying a lot about data driven mindset. And I think that's really, I totally agree with that. Being able to see, because you mentioned about financial forecasting as well, forecasting the business, right? Because at the end of the day, why we do business is really around the figure, right? It's getting the figure that say it however you want it, but at the end of the day, you embarking into a business because you want to gain something in terms of figure, or AKA money, right? So I think it's really very much relevant nowadays. But at the same time, what I like about you, Suri, is for all the businesses that you have done, those are really, it speaks about you as a person, right? Because you are very, well, put it in a simplest way, you are very stylish, and of course you're wearing tudung, and that's why I said that it speaks about you. So what's your advice to those people who wants to start a business? How should I know you have been saying a lot about that, but what I'm trying to have now or to harvest from you is how can that be happening in a person where the business is really speaking about themselves?
Sure, Jai. In fact, I feel like there's a lot of that thought process that I still have to share.
Yeah, you can. In fact,
Especially
Suri,
in the right in the last venture, in this latest venture, right? So
yeah.
when I after that kind of like thinking, okay, what can I do to jumpstart a lot of things
Yeah.
to expedite, speed up, and not only rely on myself as the brain, right? So ideally, well, you are right in the sense that says like the numbers are important. Yes, very critical, but the numbers can be boring. I mean, if it's a huge numbers, yeah, it's exciting, but going to that huge numbers is a lot of work. So I think I it took me a while to get the clarity of why I wanted to do it again. It happens to be I happen to be in the stage of my life where I was changing a lot of things. The way I was, I mean, it was probably triggered by a lot of spiritual change. So, so that was kind of revolving or the fundamental in of why I wanted to start another hijab company. What would this brand or company solve? How can it help people? How can it help my community? How can it put values? So that was we we can't start a business just by wanting to address our own needs, which I learned before. I mean, there must be a lot of other people out there who has that same problems as well, right? So we're answering a collective problems. So from that clarity, then I took it into how can I jumpstart this? How can I make this work faster? You know, so I know I could not follow the model that I did before. I did it few times before. First time, second time, third time, with all the brands that I created, and I know none of that would be sufficient if I want to jumpstart this in a very different way. So I know right away. So that um, this is going to be different. So the big picture is also different. So I kept saying the word big picture first, right? So people, when they have an idea, most people will look into building the business plan right away. I spend a lot of time, not for me, the business plan is just a tool. Basically, it's just collecting all of those and organizing and structuring your thought process. But there are pretty much a lot of very the skeleton, the business skeleton you have to figure out first before you actually put them in the business plan. So my skeleton was first, what problem am I answering? So right, that was the problem. So and then how am I gonna solve that problem? Is the solution gonna be good enough, or different enough, or unique enough? So that comes with my proposition. What is my proposition? What's unique about what I'm gonna do? So what unique about what we're gonna do, not necessarily be unique in the product itself, right? Because a lot of us will think that how can you create a new product that's unique? Usually you, when you talk about uniqueness, you think about product. You don't think about other parts of the business that can be unique. So I know I probably will not be able to innovate, hijab to a point where it's super duper unique that people have not seen it. I think pretty much the variation of the design people will have already seen. So I know I was going to be able to do many some innovations, but not like something that totally like people have not seen. So my uniqueness come from maybe read channel. So I know for this business for Hejira, I want to start the business and have to I want to secure a lot of channels that are already established, sales channel. So I know if I were to just start on my own, it would be probably I have to open a boutique for the offline, or I would go online, and it would be still be me, the brand, looking for customer one at a time. And I know that's not gonna work if I want to jumpstart this. So my thought process was, okay, how can I solve this problem and solve it in a way that I can solve it many times at once? So how can I access and reach all these customers or potential customers, all these people, faster? So the uniqueness of this plan came from the idea that I would need to secure channels. So that's how I got into thinking that I need to probably approach or have some sort of partnerships with established channels. So that was where the idea stemmed from. Alhamdulillah, Hejira, this was all in the ideation, yeah. Hejira has not started yet at all. No product, nothing. It was just an idea in my head, which I continue to tweak on paper in terms of the skeleton, the parts. So at this point, I know the problem, and I know what kind of solutions I want to bring. I can answer the time frame, why this is good now. I can answer that. I did research on the market size, because when people keep saying, right, hijab, there's so many hijab companies, but this is something that I printed today. And even this is from one of the research house, says that the Malaysian woman.
Do you mind showing the paper again? So
This is just a research that I printed today, just to show that this kind of analysis and statistics you can get there at your fingertips, and you can use this as a basis instead of listening to people saying, hey, why you want to open tudung companies? So many already. So for example, right? Which is true from that person's perspective, but let's look at the potential. It says that the woman fashion in Malaysia, the industry, stand at 2.6 billion in 2018. And the trend, it's still going up. It's gonna grow to 3.4 billion in 2023. So when you look at that, you know that the trend is still going like this, it's still going up. So where are you in this? This is Malaysian statistics. You can get this kind of numbers from many research house. For example, you can just Google, there's Statista there. This one is from Genio Asia. And that will give you an idea what kind of available market there is for this particular business. And because what you're offering is probably really sub-segment of that big, bucket, you kind of work down the numbers so that in your particular niche, what's the market kind of like, and you also, so that is the total market, right? So what is the serviceable market, right? So this is when you start filtering who are you able to service. So when they talk, the statistic talk about Malaysian, so I'm targeting Muslim women, right? So my categorization has shrunken more, and at the end of that, that's you get from the total to what's serviceable to what is that you can yourself obtain. So from the TAM, you go to the serviceable market, then obtainable. So you kind of keep the numbers, the percentage smaller, so you know that, okay, if you're going to do this business, this is where it can potentially go, So you're not just working in a blind, in the dark. So that kind of your first kind of arm first, to have some information out there, data, numbers. It's not somebody's feelings. It's not somebody's thinking or opinion.
Oh no, we lost her.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like you really need to narrow down onto your niche, your target market. You zoom in on a very particular area instead of just targeting the whole market, right?
Oh, sorry, Oma, I kept getting calls coming in, so.
Okay. I was just saying that
Okay,
it
yes.
sounds
yes,
like you really zoom in into a particular area.
True. I mean, it was, the idea is already niche. Hijab is already quite niche. It's not, it's a part of women's fashion, but not everybody wears them. So you kind of like, you know, sort of just keep branching into the segment that you are targeting. So that's, when you have that kind of idea, what is that market for you, then you have a better idea whether this is something that, you know, that you should go with or not. And in this case, because I've been in this industry, I kind of know that it can work because of those past experience. It's just that I just need to apply different strategies. But if, let's say, I were to consider going into something new, like food, like whatever other areas, like services, like learning, e-learning, for example, and make that as a business, I would still follow that same thought process. I wouldn't jump in and just start writing my business plan. I would ask myself first, what is this problem that I want to fix, and is it significant enough for me to fix? Because significant as in, are there a lot of other people out there that are having the same problems? And I want to ask, is now, why now? Why should I do it now? And then start to get all this analysis in terms of data. What is the market size? What is how many is the what is the serviceable market? Meaning that out of the total market size, what's the maximum that is there for me to service? But in truth, what can I actually attend to? What market size I can actually attend to? That's the most conservative numbers. If that numbers make sense, then you kind of have an idea how big this business could be. Then is it worth your while? Is this something you want to do based on that numbers?
Right.
And a
Suri,
lot of people,
Suri, so far,
Yeah.
before you continue on, so far, what I've been getting is always around, you have a series of questions around the thought process when you are having this thinking around the business that you're going to be starting or you intend to start. You have to equip yourself the relevant questions to guide you through in the thought process, so that you are able to have a guideline, sort of like a guideline, a framework to work on, then to give you the decision or to whether to proceed or to go something else, to do something else. So that's, I think, and okay, my next question around that is that, do you use specific way of in that? But I mean, like, do you have a specific tools? Do you read books? Of course, you mentioned about you decided to go for mentorship, but what are the things that you have sort of like implemented? Do you have
Okay.
tools or the
So
stuff?
when you answer the problems and the problems you want to solve, and when you find out the market size, what is the most possible, the most conservative size that you can attack, it's actually just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many others that need to follow work-wise in terms of fine. So for example, I'm going to take Hejira as an example, right? So in this market, where do I want to stand? Do I want to stand as the cheap, very affordable? Do I want to stand in the mid pricing to high, or do I want to stand as a premium? So that kind of that decision will allow me to decide my pricing point, kind of. Because in order for me to go forward, I just need to evaluate my potential cost structure and potential profit from this to make it again worthwhile, right? We have a lot of ideas that just come through our head sometimes when we see things outside. So for example, people, I give an example for food. People say, okay, let's come up with a food product and sell it, right? And sometimes they just go for it without really understand what the cost structure is. And they forget to, when they forget to include that, they will very quickly figure out that it takes a lot of time but not enough money for the business, right? So you want to avoid that kind of problem.
It's
And once you've
beyond,
determined,
yeah, it's
right,
beyond solutions driven mindset then. Although you're thinking maybe that will be the starting point of you to
right,
work on to the next step, but it has to be also, you need to be equipped with those kind of skills or
right.
business
So
experience.
let's say if I'm gonna sell a food product, right?
Yeah.
And my margin is gonna be just about, even though it's gonna be a good margin around 50%. So for example, 50%, but it's only 4 ringgit per pack or 3 ringgit per pack. So if I want to achieve a certain amount of revenue, I know now how many numbers of pack I need to sell. So am I up to that? If I'm up to that, then I can move to the next step, which is what's my minimum requirement to go to market, right? If after I've acknowledged all of this and I still want to go to market, then that can help determine my business model. So in my case for Hejira, so I know I need to have more channels than that I can build in a short time. So
Uh-oh.
brought the idea to call coming in. I brought the idea to the Siti Khadijah group. So I had a meeting with them before I started the whole thing and just share my ideas.
Right, Suri, when you said about what are the channels that are available, it gets me into layman term around how can you make your product or your services visible as clear as how you can reach those potential consumers or buyers. Am I
Right,
right to
right.
put it that simply?
Yes. So Jack, if you have, let's say Jack, you're gonna sell a supplement drink, right? So you can sell it to your friends in Facebook. You can sell it through your website. You can sell it through Shopee. So these become your channel, right? But these channels you have to build yourself. Maybe in your personal Facebook, you're lucky because you have all these friends, FB friends that you've developed over the years. So they know and trust you already. But if you set a website, who would trust you immediately, right? They need to experience that drink or get testimonial from others first, right? But if let's say a 7-Eleven sells that drink, right? That's your channel. Even somebody who has never heard of that brand or that drink would still trust to buy it because 7-Eleven offers it. So that's what I mean by having channels.
All right, so it's
So
visibility, accessibility, how can that be
yes.
reachable? Yeah, and yeah,
Right.
around that.
So in this case, the reason why I approached Siti Khadijah was I know they have very successfully spent a lot of years building that trust and channel and brand. So that was the start of this journey when they become Hejira become a subsidiary of the Siti Khadijah group. Right. So which means they are part owner, and which means that's also the reason why Hejira is available at SK retail outlets as well as direct from Hejira as in the online. So now we have two channels, the B2B and the B2C, right? So if I had to build all of that retail myself, I mean, they have over 30 outlets in the entire Malaysia. I mean, how long would it take me to build that, right? It would taken me so much capital, so much effort, so much time to do the same. So, but that's what I mean by thinking the big picture. You decide first. You craft all of this. You craft all of this first, right? And then you work on the business model.
Suri,
This is when
I have these pressing questions around because what you have been sharing from the very beginning and now is really around setting up the foundation, making it as strong as you can, And how long was it for you from the ideation to really into execution? So, or rather, what would be your lesson from it that people perhaps could, replicate? Yeah.
Right. It's really, I mean, in my case for Ajira, it was very quick. I acted upon it very quickly, and with God's help, like everything sort of just fall smoothly. So when I had the idea, I was making all this all the analysis, the market size, and I was doing some forecasting. I was deciding what kind of brand this is going to be, what pricing point, what's the USP, all of that, right? All of that. And once I was very clear, I was able to come up with numbers. So did like a 1-year forecast of the business. Like this is what the business would look like in 1 year, and how much how much money does it require in terms of to start it? How much money will it have to break even, or how much revenue it will collect in 1 year? Right, all of that was already on paper. Then I approached Speaker Dicha and presented it. But I also, that was the part that I want to talk about. People sometimes have ideas and they think it's really great idea, and sometimes those are great ideas and they quickly jump to finding and looking for investor. And you see how many steps they have skipped in between that will actually jeopardize and sabotage their chances of getting fund, because they have not really think through all these things in the middle.
Yeah.
You know,
So
you want to
I'm
be able
gonna,
to.
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay, Shay. What was your question?
Well, it's just that you got so much to share, and I'm just soaking everything you say, because I think it's so valuable. And I'm just wondering, are you mentoring people right now, or can somebody come to you and say, hey, can you share with us your thought process questions? These are amazing stuff. Or is this a learning that you're, yeah.
I never list myself as a mentor because I'm also a student. But
That's
at the
about
same time,
Suri. She always down to earth, but she has a lot of this, more than enough to call herself as a mentor. Yeah.
I have been lucky a few times to have been called to run some programs, but I mean, because I'm not a trainer by career, right? But I love to share this with people. I just it's just recently that I start actively creating topics and sharing it with people. But before this, it was more like by, if anybody requests, and I would, or if anybody asks for opinions, and I would share. But I think the danger for a lot of business people is that they skip that step. I mean, we hear about good ideas all the time, but without this analysis, you cannot firmly stand in front of anybody to convince them, because you got to convince yourself first. When you are convinced yourself and you have answered all those questions, the thought process, the general thought process that people have is not a lot of asking questions. We are answering questions, but we don't ask. We don't scrutinize our own ideas. Why would people buy this product? Where would they get this product? Why would they trust this product? Like those kind of questions, you got to ask and have good answers. If you can really confidently answer that, then it's so easy to convince anybody out there about that idea.
So it's not around langgar dinding lah. Langgar dinding baru rasa sakit, no more.
Another mistake that I see a lot that entrepreneurs do is when they have that ideas, they feel so strongly about it, which is good. But that's all that is. They feel strongly about it.
Yeah.
They will miss that being data driven and number driven. They will not even, okay, so for example, what happens happened during MCO, right? So a lot of people come to like pivot and start having new products, which it's a blessing to see everybody is doing new things. That's great. So for example, during Bulan Puasa, we see a lot of people trying to get into like the bazaar online. Okay, that's great because it brings people together, solve problems, solve community problem. But the person behind that, have they thought of a good business model? Have they thought of a good revenue model? You know, how are you going to generate money of the goods? How are you going to sustain? Is it going to be over after Ramadan? And usually that's because they just have that idea and execute, and they miss that part about the analysis, about forecasting, about really anticipating the cost that goes, you know, all of those. And you know, and because if you do that step right in the beginning, you would able to see the business model that is the best you can have, you know, because there are so many ways of doing things for one product. You know, you can do
so it sounds like you have a checklist of questions.
Right.
And this would be a standard approach. So if I take your checklist, I can apply it to any business that I want to do. Pretty much, right? Because you're asking all those questions that you know, very piercing questions. Because a lot of business people, they kind of like, I've got this great idea, I love it, and then I just want to do it, right? Or I've got a unique idea, I've got an idea for a unique product, but they don't think about what's a unique way of doing it. That's why I like it. I like it when you said it's not just about a unique product, but a unique way of doing it, or how do I tweak my process so that it's unique. And you talk about leveraging, right? So
leveraging.
Right. So I guess this checklist of questions would be something that is so valuable to have. You could turn that into an ebook and sell, or conduct classes for that as well.
If you Google how to start a business, unfortunately, none of the answers on the first page, the first Google's return search page, none of that will talk about the data and the number part.
Yeah.
In fact,
You would have all those steps, but like they would say, oh, you know, create business plan, do this, but none of them will talk about forecast. All of that numbers, you know, know what pricing point you want to do, know your margin, you know your cost structure, all of that. So it's quite unfortunate, but it's so critical, because that will determine whether because the good idea is there, but that will determine whether it's worth to go about it or not. So I'm talking about all the parts before you even go to see investor, right? Because when you go see investor, you're supposed to be so clear on why you need that person, or why you need that company, or why you need this partnership, or why you want to have this. It should be part of that solution, part of the solution, not just the typical idea that you go to see investor to get money. That's not true. You should go to see investor maybe because they have other things that can help you. For example, they have the network, they have the platform, they have whatever, you know. So those can be potentially your partners, even not shareholding partners. They can be your collaborative partners, they can be your alliance. So you identify. That's why I love to use BMC, but I use it very like loosely, in terms of like, I really don't follow, probably not. It's just like a structure to my thought process, you know. So once I'm ready to build the business model, who are my key partners, for example, or who are my customer segments, all of this needs to be answered first before you decide. So like I was saying, people usually skip all these steps and go straight away to thinking about who can be my investor.
Right. So that was I was about to ask that question too, right, Monica? I've been hearing, like Omar mentioned just now, a lot of questions that you have to ask yourself. So I think to guide you through is by having those business model canvas. That's where then we'll sort of funnel you into exactly the what type of questions to answer those relevant elements in BMC. So that will be the the first point where you can, I mean, for those who wants to start a new business, that you can start on, right?
Right. And people are usually intimidated by it, but if you see it as just a helper, a helper notes. People usually like, oh, I don't know how to use the BMC. Like, you don't need to know. You just see the point and you start connecting the dots. That's the easiest way to see it. If you are intimidated by it, then it's going to be hard to use it. So there's no right or wrong ways on using it. It's just making sure that all your thought process are organized, all the points have been addressed. That's about it. And once you have that, I would say go find people and show this to them and get them to scrutinize. Go find people who you know that you can trust them to question you, not people who always say, oh, wonderful, yes, oh, this is great, awesome. Not that kind of feedback.
So that's part of validation. You have to validate your BMC.
Definitely. Yeah. And find that circle that can validate and have the courage to point out all the bad news first and to say like, oh, maybe this will not work because of this and this, and have that input, but not make the input a deterrent, right? Because an input is an input, but make sure you have enough range of input so you can actually have a good sense of how to then proceed.
Right. So
what people always miss also is not only the business model part, but the revenue model. So for example, if I want to start a platform right now to start trading, right, to just add my cash flow. So I want to start selling things that normally I don't sell, so like some food, some whatever. Ask myself, how do I profit from this? What's my revenue model? And if the revenue model is enticing enough for me to spend a lot of effort in it. So if the margin is not big, so for example, if I focus on food, but my quantity is not big, ask myself, do I want to do this, or do I want to just think or figure out a way to make this big so that it's worth it for me, even though the margin is small?
So what do you advise? Business model first or business plan first? Business model can say, I mean BMC or business plan.
Business plan for me is just a tool. It's just a document where you put all of that we talk about in it so that somebody else can read and understand it.
Right. So first thing in terms of giving you bigger picture is the BMC. I mean, those kind of to guide you those questions, and then you transfer all those. Yeah.
I wouldn't even start with BMC. Like I was saying in the beginning, you start with the problems first. So you identify the solution. So from there, you decide the time, and then you find the market size, all of that, right?
Yeah.
Once you sort of like pretty sure, okay, when you have this idea, you're kind of like, okay, 20% sure about this business. And then when you go through the next step, you kind of build that confidence and the grasp of that business to you, and slowly you build that confidence. So I would say that 40-50% of the way, then you already say, okay, this is worth for me to actually just play with the BMC and see the relationship, and then start thinking of revenue model, because sometimes the revenue model is clear already. So for example, like Jack was saying, I was giving example for Jack having a new supplement drink, right? So the revenue model is clear. You sell, you get the money, but then the revenue model will change if you change the channel, right?
Yes.
So if I sell directly, my margin is besar. If I sell to agent, my margin is slightly smaller. If I sell to establishment that have some physical presence, lagi small, but quantity is big. So revenue model to dah bertukar-tukar. And you have to understand all of those paths and whether you want to take on that path. Because if you do everything on your own, you might not achieve that speed or the volume in the time frame that you want.
This is really great. In fact, the
Yeah.
more I listen to you, the more glaringly it is telling me around design thinking processes. You know,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
started
I don't want to
to,
use that word because
yeah.
I'm no in no way uh, are a person in the area to use that word. So I
I'm
just
not
use thought
true.
process because that's layman's word.
Right. Yes, you're right. You're right. But it is like, I can't help but to mention it to you that the more I listen to you, the more the flow is really like, you know, this
Yeah.
design thinking, you know. Because what I want to highlight here is that a person who wants to start a new business, it beyond your passion, it's beyond determination. It's also around the
Yes.
technicality part of it, because most of the time we human beings, we tend to get inspired by someone who has the energy, who has the, you know, the attributes of you know, very high energetic person. But at the end of the day, you also need to be able to have a bit of good grasp around the technicality of doing business, right? So,
Yeah.
and that has to
Right.
be established beforehand. That can be the foundation of you moving on. So I think, and good news is that we have a person like Suri that has gone through all those ups and downs, and now easy. People, if you want to start business, go look for Suri because she has everything, you know. She has
Yeah.
been the
I
deep
wouldn't say
end.
everything, but the
Well, I mean,
acumen, actually, that's the word, right? The acumen. The acumen is
human,
something
yes.
that,
You
yeah,
can share.
there's the business acumen, there's the financial acumen, and the good news is it's all learnable. Nobody
Yeah.
is born with those. It's all learnable. I
Okay.
learned it, and that means anybody can learn it. It's
Right.
So,
just a
I got a
discipline.
question for you. I got a question for you. You're doing all of this stuff, you know, and obviously you're a thinking person. So apart from just doing the business, you're putting thoughts to it, right? And at the same time, you got kids. How do you handle all this?
I was
Oh,
curious too.
my
Work
kids live
life
on the
balance.
Sala.
Oh, you laugh?
I don't have small babies. My biggest baby is already 19 years old, so
Oh,
he's pretty much on his own. And my daughter is 17. My youngest is in standard 3, so they're they've all grown up. I have a very helpful and strong support system that I can say attributed to my family. My parents are around and they help take care, become the transit place for all my kids, become the center where they can congregate after school, things like that. So I'm very lucky in that sense. And that's been one of the reasons why I still choose to live in Sinawang and never reside in KL.
Suri, I have a question also around your way of how do you do your, or what are the practices or rather activities around your personal growth?
Um,
How do you develop yourself other than, of course,
right.
all those business centered?
There's a joke in my household between my husband and I. That's I always tell him that I have other roommates. It's not scary. Don't worry. My other roommates, what I meant by that is I'm always listening. I'm always listening to a lot of things on YouTube. It's very intentional. So I would have, at one point. So for example, I'm crazy about Indra Nuyi. I'm gonna name some of those people that I really studied. So for example, I would listen nonstop to a lot of the early interviews by Jeff Bezos. I would listen to Sarah Blakely, a lot of these people who are very successful, and their information is very readily available in YouTube through so many interviews, and there's a lot of like gold nuggets, diamond nuggets within those interviews. All you need to do is just get inspiration and listen to. You really don't need to sign up to go to a seminar where they are attending, because chances are you're not going to be able to do that, right? They're not going to be somewhere here, or if they are, they're not going to be cheap. So
Yeah.
these are my extra roommates, you know, I listen to them all the time. And so that's the joke.
Thanks a lot, Suri. I think today we are like there's a lot of, like you said, diamonds of learning that we have gotten from you. In fact, we are over 1 hour, but it's okay. That's about it. When we don't have airtime, we can go as much as we want. But I, but we do have to put a time
Right.
of this, or else you will get dragged. And yeah. But thank you so much for that, Suri. And last but not least, right, this is questions that a lot of, because of the current situation of this COVID-19, if people would want to pivot. I know you have been giving us a lot of those technicality and those lessons. So what will be your words of encouragement to these people?
um, I think first of all I would want to say that um, I would want to acknowledge that this is a challenging time, right, for a lot of people, especially SMEs. I would attest to all these scary stories that we hear or see or read every day. Like, okay, the economy we're gonna be in bad recession, or we're gonna be in whatever, all of that, right? So I really think that filtering is at most important. You kind of have to really filter what goes inside here. And um, we can only, the good thing about human is we can only focus at one thing at a time. So if you really focus on the opportunity part, the growing part, the re-strategizing part, and again, for a Muslim like me, if you're a Muslim, then you have that extra believe. I would say to any people who embrace spirituality, right, they will embrace that there's power beyond us, on top of our effort, that can help navigate through this. It's that combination that I would say that no COVID, no virus can stop you, right?
Beautiful.
Falling down, falling to you on your knee, that's just cakap Melayu dia asam garam orang berniaga. You don't be scared of it. It's good. You just get up and learn and go and do it again. Do it better.
Wow, that's really beautiful. And tell the audience around how can they buy your products, the latest product. Where are your outlets located? And yeah.
So for Hejira, we are available online. So we have a direct channel through social media and online. Our website is at www.hejirahijab.com. Hejira is Hegira. It's spelled like Hegira but pronounced Hejira. It means hijrah. It's the English word for the word hijrah, which for us we translate to continuous improvement. And it's also available at Siti Khadijah Boutique, about 25 or 26 retail boutique in Siti Khadijah all over the country.
All right.
Jack, I really apologize if some of the things that I said I wanted to share, like how to work with investor and all of that, we didn't get to cover. So I really apologize for those who are watching. If you're hoping to hear that part and you didn't hear it, I apologize. But please note that you can always contact me if you have specific questions. I can share with you what I've learned, or I can share with you some suggestions that I can do.
All right. Not to worry, Suri, because again, we can always have part 2 if you're willing, if you're keen. Or we'll talk more about that. I'm not sure. I lost Omar. I don't know what happened to him. Perhaps let me check. Yeah. Yeah, Omar was suggesting, he texted me that we can actually sell a business startup workshop with Suri. Wow, will that be a new?
What?
Yeah, that will be a new, because that'll be a good idea, because you know, hearing from you, a lot of these valuable things that we can learn from you. I mean, not only just on the theory, but you have gone through the practicality of it, that you have implemented stuff, and I think that's the most important part when it comes to operating business, because a lot of people out there are offering business coach, business mentorship, but a lot of time it's based on what it is, what's the ideal, but without a proper experience around it. So I think it's very dangerous for us to go. Well, I can say, quote unquote, dangerous to go into that. It's good to go, but at the end of the day, when we are implementing, it's really us to experience those ups and downs of you know, applying those tools. All right.
Jack, I
Okay.
want to share one last quote,
Yeah, sure.
Jack, if
And
you allow me.
yeah, of course.
This was shared by one of my mentors. Let me read it for you. It says that the person who sweats the most in training will bleed less in war. So you're right about getting the right coach. You're right about getting the help from people who have experience those mistakes, so that you don't do it, or you can jumpstart and have shortcuts. That's the way to go. Shortcuts all the way.
All right. So I think that's pretty much to a parting advice for our audience. And let me address our audience, our live viewers. Thank you so much for dropping by again. And of course, if you do have questions around what Suri shared just now, you can always reach out. You know how to get her. Her Facebook is on the caption. And thank you so much, Suri. I don't know. I lost Omar. I think he is having problem with his connection. It has been like that for a few days, because he just moved to a new place and he's pretty much relying on his hotspot. So that's how it is. Our new norm. We like it or not, we are relying on technology, but we just be grateful, right? We just be grateful of however of whatever things that we have at this point of time, and make full use out of it, right? So, okay, before I end the session today, let me also share with our viewers that we do have, on Monday, as usual, we have the men's brief session, where we'll be talking issues around men, and there are a lot of this sensitive issue that we're going to discuss. Of course, I won't be the one who will be leading the session. We'll have Omar and Jeff, and hopefully if you can make it. And again, this session or this point of view series is not just for us. This is just an avenue for us to add value to others, and also an avenue for you, if you do have anything to share, or you want to add value to others, to reach out. We can, you know, get you in, be part of the sharing. All right. So thank you so much, Suri. Hope to see you face to face. Well, physically, we are doing face to face already,
Right.
but physically in soonest, yeah. All right. So thank you so much. Yeah. So let me end the Facebook Live. Thank you so much, everyone. So bye-bye. Okay, we're no longer live, Suri. Thank you so much. Oh my God, there's a lot of information, which is, I like it.
Was that easy? To follow, or was I going very fast?
Okay. I was putting myself in a shoe of a person that don't know, well, not don't know, but have not gone through business. I have not been doing business. Perhaps it's something that I want it to be, macam, if I can have a workbook, you know, like step by step, okay, apa.
Right.
Yes, you made it like that, you know, like it's so much easy to follow. It's just that now implementing it. I don't know, Suri, but actually I have suggested to the group that we are going to have a startup series. So perhaps we can invite you again. You know, it's that series will be specifically for startups, but it will be like twice a month. Yeah. So you can, I don't know, this just a thought came to me, and I'm not sure you have time as well.
Yeah, boleh je, no problem. No problem.
Yeah.
I love to share because in the sharing also sometimes I'm reminded of a lot of things.
Yeah.
So every time I get to share, I always learn something new as well. So
Can.
yeah.
But seriously, you made me think differently, you know. I mean, yeah lah, because you have gone through, like I mentioned just now lah, you have gone through all those, and oh my God, I never thought really like zooming into data, zooming into the numbers, you know. That's really
Yes.
like, oh my goodness, never
But
thought of that.
but you're not alone, Jack. I
Mm.
think the majority of us, including myself, people was like that. I really like to push that numbers to somebody,
Yeah.
and the truth is, if you study the most successful founders or CEOs in a company that has run. I mean, dekat Malaysia memang lah you see a lot of the big brands, the young ones creating big brands, and they are very successful. But we're talking about sustainability, right? The company that has passed 10 years, 20 years mark, because that's what you want to do. You want to build business that have that kind of sustainability. Even if you sell them after 5 years, you want that company to have that life, that long
Yeah.
life. These are the people usually, if they are women CEO, they are usually from financial background.
Mm.
So that means they are financially very savvy. So it makes people like me, the creative ones who have issues with numbers before, it makes people like me had to rethink, like if I'm doing this business suka-suka, then okay lah, you don't need to know the numbers. But if I want to be serious and make this big, and make this worth it, then I should not dismiss that. That should be my compass. That should be my compass. And I have a kind of adopt that. And this is so interesting because people say that because of my husband is good in numbers, that I should be automatically good in
Heck
numbers.
is what is his background?
He's an engineer, tapi he's very good with these numbers because he's been CEO before for many years for MNC, like quite a big company, kan? So he's very used to this. But let me tell you, I could not learn from him. Tak boleh, because I don't know why. For the life of me, I will not get it. I will not get it. I have to study from many sources, mentors, understanding the profit and loss document, understanding how to forecast based on that, understanding how to get my cash flow adjustments going, things like that. Not only learn, experience, practice. Learn, experience, do on a monthly basis. But once you've done it for a while, you kind of like, now every time wherever we go, he would tell people that I'm worse than him now. He would tell people that, which is probably true. Like I scrutinize more. So he liked to, whenever he has chances to go for meetings, pitching, things like that, he likes to bring me in because he says that I can scrutinize very good. So he needs to hear that scrutiny.
Wow, such an involvement for you. Right.
Yeah, betul.
I think it's like creating the habits. You are in that habits already. Wow. Oh my God. Okay. If you agree, then sorry. Hang on. Sorry. If you agree, then we can. I rope you in the startup series. Probably I don't know how's your. We were thinking around doing it twice a month, but we have not started it lah. I mean this group lah, Nina, Angelina, and Omar, because each one of us.
What is it? What is it about the startup group?
Startup business story.
The startup series.
The series,
Yeah.
series is
Yes.
business startup for those who wants to. Well, I mean, it's really around the business startup lah. Yeah. Okay. Another one like Suri, because the session I actually recorded the session. I can send you the link. You can You can use it however you want it. You know, you want to cut, or you want to use for your whatever lah. I send it to you nanti.
Okay, okay,
All
cool.
right.
Thanks, Jack.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Suri. So grateful to have
Okay.
you today.
Thank you so much, Jack. Bye. See you.
Okay, see you.